Hi there, just a quick note before we get started. I'm just not seeing the agenda come up on my end to be able to click through things. So just hang on 1 minute, please. Thank you. All right, I think we're good to go. I'll call this meeting to order at 2:04 p.m. and begin with a land acknowledgement. I'd like to call on Trustee Nelson, please.
Place and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. As we gather here before Family Day, let us also acknowledge the importance of family and community values, values that are deeply cherished by the Indigenous peoples. May this day be a time for us to strengthen our bonds with one another and to celebrate the rich diversity of cultures that make up our community and our families.
Thank you for that. We'll move to the next item on our agenda, roll call. I'd like to call on the superintendent, please.
Trustees Hole, Estabrooks, and Sawyer absent from today's meeting. All of the trustees are present.
One moment here. I will now move to the next agenda item, which is approval of the agenda. I'd like to call on Trustee Sumar to move that the agenda be approved as presented.
So moved.
Thank you for that. Are there any trustee comments or questions on the agenda? I'd like to just take a quick note and move that, let me see, bring it up here. Whereas the time allotted for speakers on any educational issue at 5 p.m. is 20 minutes, according to the trustee handbook. And whereas there is a need to balance the opportunity for individuals to address the board while recognizing that board meetings are business meetings and thus convened to move forward the work of the board, I move that we extend the time allotted to triple the normal amount of time, up to 60 minutes, for speakers at today's meeting. As this is a virtual meeting, should the 18 registered speakers totaling 54 minutes of speaking time not be able to speak due to technical difficulties, we accommodate them as much as reasonably possible. So with that, I'll call the vote on that particular motion. Trustee Sumar.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we're doing the normal course of motions in terms of debate or questions, but I was actually hoping to move an amendment to the motion if possible.
Go ahead.
So just trying to pull up the motion that was made. That we move to extend up to the total number of speakers.
Kate, we'll wait for that to be added into the system, the Confero system here. I understand that isn't a quick fix, so why don't we put a pause on this piece, move back to the agenda in general, and then we'll come back to this amendment. So moving back just to the main agenda piece, are there any other questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the vote on the agenda. Let's see here. Can I get oh, I understand that it's showing the wrong vote. We're just going to have to take a pause here and get ourselves sorted out. Stand at ease, everybody, for a few minutes. Okay, so I see that um, the current vote that's up is approval of the agenda. So trustees may vote on that. Go ahead. Okay, so that passes unanimously. We will now move to the back to the amendment by trustee Sumar. Again, let's just stand at ease for a second while I get confirmation that that is up and ready. Okay, so I understand that the amendment is now ready, but looking for that to be displayed on the screen. Coming shortly, I understand. Okay, I see it up there. So now I will ask if there are any trustee, okay. It looks like the vote is ready, but first of all, are there any trustee comments or questions on that? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor of the amendment? On our end, it's showing that the voting is finished. Just a second. Before we display the vote, we need to go through questions and debate. So just hang on your votes there. That's why we haven't displayed those yet. So are there any trustee questions on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, I will move us into, I'm not sure why it's displaying the vote now. One second, let's just stand at ease for 10 minutes, get the technology sorted out and return to the meeting. All right, I think we are ready to resume the meeting. I will ask if there are any trustee questions. So actually what I'm seeing here is the motion to extend the allotted time to all speakers at 5 p.m. So this is actually an amendment of the motion. Are there any trustee questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I will move to debate. Are there any trustees wishing to enter into debate? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote on the amendment to extend the time allowed to accommodate all speakers at 5 p.m. We're ready to display the vote. Okay, so that amendment carries, it becomes the main motion. I will call the vote on the main motion now. So the amendment becomes the main motion. So we'll just have to get that up. Don't vote yet, trustees. I think that what we're voting right now is motion to extend. It's on the original one. We don't need to do that because the amendment now is the main motion. So we just need to vote on the amended motion now. We can call the vote on the amended motion, which is now our main motion to extend the time allotted to accommodate all speakers at 5 p.m. And the vote can now be displayed, please. And that passes unanimously. All right, so that is now clear in our under item H, that will include all speakers at 5 p.m. Moving now to the next item on our agenda, looking for that to please be displayed on the screen. Communications from the board chair. So first, an update on board composition. On January 20th, Trustee Hull went on medical leave. An end date for the leave has not been set. During her absence, Trustee Hancock and Trustee O'Keefe will be providing coverage for Ward C. Schools within Ward C have been split between them, and a list is available on School Zone under the Trustee tab and in the Trustees section on epsb.ca. On January 23rd, Trustee Estabrooks submitted her resignation from the Board of Trustees. As per Section 80 of the Education Act, I am accepting her resignation at this meeting, thus putting it into effect. I want to thank Tricia for her years of service as a trustee. My full statement on behalf of the Board of Trustees is posted on epsb.ca. At a special caucus meeting held on January 28th, the Board of Trustees appointed me as the trustee for Ward D for the remainder of the term. I'm looking forward to getting to know the school communities, families, and other constituents of Ward D better over the next 8 months. So please do get in touch anytime. Labor. The Board of Trustees has delegated authority for all human resources matters, including labor relations, to the superintendent. typically all bargaining committees, including QP Local 474, QP Local 3550, QP Local 784, and the ATA Committee, have trustee representation. Today, Vice Chair Sawyer is at the bargaining table with QP 3550. The role of trustees on the committee is to ensure that all trustees are informed about current matters affecting the board and the division. As a board of trustees, we acknowledge and appreciate this is a challenging time. In our governance role for the division, we remain committed to taking a system-wide approach to ensuring the best learning outcomes and environment for all students. We hold the superintendent accountable and continue to do everything within our role to reach a deal so that learning can get back to normal. I would also like to take a moment to pause and reflect on what we're all here for kids, for students at Edmonton Public Schools, for their education, because we believe in the critical importance of public education and the need for us to collectively invest in it. The board remains committed to advocating for public education and fulfilling the duties entrusted in us throughout the remainder of our term. The work of the board continues. The provincial budget is expected to be announced at the end of February. The Board of Trustees has been steadfast advocates for change to the funding formula that will meet the needs of unprecedented student enrollment and rising complexities in our classrooms. The Premier and Minister of Education have stated that they will be making adjustments to the funding formula. While we don't know what those changes will be, we will be watching closely to see how our suggestions and feedback have been reflected in the changes. The board has been a relentless advocate for new school construction, modernization of existing schools, and provincial investment to reduce deferred maintenance, which sits at approximately $1 billion for the division at this time. Again, much of this advocacy has been effective, and we are seeing an increase in the number of school projects being funded for Edmonton Public Schools from the province. Is it enough or fast enough? No, but it's a good start, and we will continue our work as a board to ensure the province is aware of the needs of Edmonton Public Schools. The board's advocacy takes many forms, from conversations with parents and school councils to engagement with elected officials at all levels of government. This is work that continues. If you have any questions about board advocacy, reach out to your trustee. We have several materials available for sharing, and trustees can speak to your questions and listen to your concerns. At our next board meeting on March 4th, I will bring an update on the impact of the provincial budget to Edmonton Public Schools. So with that, we will now move to the next item on our agenda, which is communications from the superintendent.
Madam Chair, I'll just start off by just addressing a little bit about our current strike with QP 3550. We remain committed to reaching a negotiated settlement with QP Local 3550. We believe that an agreement is possible, and we are dedicated to working collaboratively to achieve that. Of course, we value our support staff tremendously. They're essential members of our school communities and central office, and we recognize the vital role they play in supporting the success of our students. I know that this strike is particularly difficult for families with children, and of course the children who have specialized learning needs. It is not our preference to have any student learning from home, and we're doing everything we can to support teaching and learning for all students within the constraints of the current situation. I know this is challenging for families and staff and students. Leading up to the strike, families had conversations with their school principal and staff about how learning might look should our valued support staff decide to strike. This open communication and collaboration is and will continue to be essential. Our principals are working tirelessly to be as accommodating as possible. However, the reality is that we are operating with limited staff, and we must prioritize the safety and well-being of everyone in our schools. We ask for your continued patience and understanding as we work towards a resolution. Last week, pre-enrollment and registration for the 25-26 school year started. Like last year, we have combined dates for new student registration and returning student pre-enrollment. Parents have until Wednesday, March 19th to pre-enroll their children. To help families get ready to choose a school for the 25-26 school year, open houses will run throughout February and March, giving families and students a chance to learn a little bit more about what school has to offer, from alternative programming to complementary courses, extracurricular activities, sports teams, a taste of school culture, and a chance to see the physical space. Information about these dates will be available on epsb.ca. And I would just also add that many of our schools are experiencing significant enrollment constraints, meaning that we have limited space in many of our schools. Principals have all the details about where schools fall on our growth control model, and will communicate those not only at open houses, but of course to families as they register. If anyone has any questions about enrolling in a particular school, I would encourage them to reach out to their principal, to the principal of that school. That's all, Madam Chair, for me for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that update. And as is our current practice, if there is a trustee that wishes to ask a question about anything in the superintendent's update, then they may signal now. Seeing no questions, let's move on to the next item on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes. So from the board meeting December 10th, 2024, I would like to call on Trustee Nelson to move that the minutes be approved as presented.
Moved.
Great. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing no trustees signaling to speak, I will call the vote on approving the minutes. And that is passed unanimously. We'll now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is comments from the public and staff group representatives on items on the meeting agenda. We have one registered speaker for this item. I'll outline the process that we will follow. I'll then call on the speaker to provide their comments. The Board of Trustees values input from everyone who cares about the education of our children. That is why the board meeting includes an invitation to members of the public and staff representatives to address specific agenda items. The speaker has been advised that the board meeting is being audio recorded as well as webcast live. Please note that as the chair, I have full authority to maintain decorum and order of the meeting to ensure a welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe environment, which includes interrupting any speaker who makes critical statements about particular individuals or groups of people, whether named or identifiable by context, ruling the speaker out of order and terminating the speaker's privilege to address the Board of Trustees. Further, the Education Act provides that no person shall disturb or interrupt the proceedings at a board meeting. The speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes to make their comments. Thank you in advance for your cooperation in maintaining respect for the proceedings. I'd like to call on Rebecca Yao for comments on the SRO report in front of the board today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rebecca Yo. I live in Ward G and my kids currently attend a school in Ward D. I'm here today to talk about the School Resource Officer Program Evaluation Framework. The current feedback proposal does little to address concerns that were raised by the public at the April 30th, 2024 board meeting, where the motion was passed to explore EPS having a formal role in our division. Specifically, concerns regarding accountability of the program, the use of outside resources to evaluate the impact of the program, and the timeline of information being provided to the board and the public. This leaves me with many questions about how much this program has changed from its previous iteration and what benefit the students of Edmonton Public Schools will gain from implementing a new program so quickly. In regards to accountability of the program, key measures proposed by the program evaluation document state using surveys and focus groups to determine if outcomes are being met. Will these include questions directly related to SROs and having a fully armed police officer in schools, or more generally to safety, as was the case for the initial surveys used in the report presented at the April 30th board meeting? Additionally, in the reintroduced SRO program evaluation, a key short-term outcome is incidents are de-escalated prior to becoming more serious or criminal. However, there is no stated outcome to ensure no additional punitive measures are implemented by the school, like suspensions or expulsions. There is a known increase in these measures when police are present in schools as an alternative option for students. Criticism raised on the report leading to the reintroduction of the SRO program included dismissing critical voices. How and when will EPSB review new research concerning police in schools? Will EPSB continue to evaluate data from other jurisdictions that have removed equivalent programs in their schools? Will there be further opportunity for the public, researchers, and experts to provide input on the implementation and use of the SRO program in Edmonton Public Schools? The timeline for this framework in bringing armed police officers back in schools repeats previous patterns of not allowing opportunities for input. Why did Edmonton Public Schools begin the reintroduction of the SRO program before providing this School Resource Officer Program Evaluation Framework being given today? A concern previously raised when the SRO program was initially paused was that not enough information was being made publicly available. Additionally, given that the board will not hear results from phase 1 in the framework until September of 2025, why will resource officers be implemented in 6 additional schools at the beginning of the 2025-26 school year ahead of receiving the phase 1 report? Finally, a key goal of the SRO approach to division is the SRO program positively and equitably impacts the sense of belonging, safety, and well-being of students and supports a safe and caring school community. What other measures is the board taking to achieve this? Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, for taking the time to speak today. We appreciate the time and effort it took for you to provide this input. And I do encourage you to submit your comments to the writing or to the recording secretary. You can do that in writing. All right, moving now to our next item, which is reports. The first report up is the Student Senate 2024-2025 Work Plan Update. There will be a brief introduction for this item, and I'd like to call on student trustees Bella, Chloe, and Christina to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am just going to share the slides here. Good afternoon. We are honored to be back before the board to update you on the Student Senate's work project, as well as our progress since our last meeting. My name is Chloe, a student senator from Dr. Ann Anderson High School. And alongside Bella and Christina, we're excited to share the steps we've taken to move these initiatives forward. Now I'd like to hand things over to Bella for an overview of the projects.
Bella, please go ahead and speak. Chloe, you can go ahead and share your screen, but keep your mic on.
And don't worry, I don't know whether you were here for the first initial part of our meeting. It took us a little while to get our tech up and running. So just take your time.
The screen is sharing, right?
Your screen is not sharing, Chloe.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen right now?
I can't see your screen yet. We did see
What
it for a
about
little
now?
while there, and then it disappeared. There we go.
Can we see it now? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it keeps disappearing. And okay, thanks. I think Bella's just having some technical difficulties. Her internet's not as great, so I'll just continue on here.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to apologize for my internet connection. Lately, my device has been really struggling to connect, so like the inconsistent transitions is just sometimes I can't hear people speaking, or sometimes my connection just cuts out spontaneously.
Hi, Chloe and Christina. Just while Bella's struggling with her internet a bit, perhaps if you two could carry on with the presentation, and then if Bella's able to rejoin during questions, that would be great.
Hi, I can say Bella's part. Sorry, my mic was just muted. So to continue, after careful consideration, our group and our discussions, the Student Senate has planned 4 projects following the SMART SMART goals, each aligned with the student and the division's strategic plan. These projects are the Live Career Exploration event, the Live Diversity event, an academic support group information kit, and a podcast series. For each project, we use the SMART goals to guide our planning. First, we identified specific objectives and required sources. Then, we established measurable outcomes while also assessing the feasibility and relevance of each initiative to ensure that they will effectively support the division students. Our group has consistently referred to our outline goals that we have established at the beginning of the year in order to gauge our product and students. We have confirmed that every project is scheduled and will be completed by the latest May 2025. I would now like to pass things over to Chloe. Okay, I think you guys can still hear me, and I'm pretty sure there's just been some technical difficulties. Chloe, would you like me to just take over? Or are you good?
Go ahead, Christina. Carry it along.
Okay. Okay, I'll go. And then Chloe, text me when yours starts to work. So we have named the Live Career Exploration event What's Next. This event is scheduled for April 17 at W.P. Wagner High School, and it is designated to expose students to various future possibilities by providing hands-on learning experience. To ensure that the event meets students' needs, we begin by surveying high schools and high school students with their career topics and the things that they are most likely to pursue. To start off, there will be interactive booths within the hallways. There will also be network professionals and engage hands-on demonstrations. These booths will showcase a variety of careers and will give students the opportunity and chance to see work done in different fields. To continue, in the main gym, there will also be a panel of journeys and insights. Finally, there will be a breakout session in classrooms focusing mainly on unique topics chosen to address the specific needs and challenges students face while planning their futures. The sessions will cover their financial planning for post-secondary education, internships, and research opportunities. For high school students, mental health and time management during transitions after high school, the specific pathways from high school to careers. Since we are a large group of 18 senators, we have divided ourselves into these 3 subgroups, each focusing on a specific aspect of the event. To the content group, we have finalized the careers that will be featured at the event and are currently working towards finding professionals in those fields. The different logistics the group is setting up will be seen by the full schedule at the end of the event, which will run from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. On the marketing side, we will have finished designing the event logo as shown on the slide, and we are now creating a web page, poster, and promotion video to deliver to high schools. The outcome of this event will be measured in several ways. Some of them will include tracking the number of attendance, students, engagement during breakout sessions, and feedback collected after the event. I would like to continue, but also Chloe texted me that she has requested to speak and she hasn't been given the ability to. So if she wants to. Okay, I'll also continue because this part is also mine. So for the Live Diversity event, it is a Senate-run event on April 10th, 2025, focused on promoting diversity within education school systems. My wonderful high school, Ross Shepherd, has agreed to host the event, and it will consist of workshops, panels, speakers, food, and more. Earlier in the year, the Senate conducted a survey within their school systems, asking teachers, staff, students, and pretty much everyone else within the school systems if they would like to see this type of event in action, and secondly, if they would like to come. There was an overwhelming majority who said that they would not only want to see but attend this event. By collecting this information, the Live Diversity Group has now planned every minute of the event and have sent out Google Forms allowing up to 100 people to sign up. Other than the senators already attending this event, it is first come, first serve. Although there will be some moderators, most of the event will be run by students. Throughout this event, the organizers hope to tackle some important issues surrounding diversity, such as background, identity, growth in regards to equality, etc. These topics have been thoroughly looked into and prepared by the students leading into these groups.
We as the Student Senate hope that the Live Diversity Group unites the Edmonton community and fortifies a stronger understanding of diversity for the generations to come. On to Chloe, who will now explain this academic support kit.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. Can you see the screen or no?
No, but it's all right, Chloe. I think you should just keep going.
Okay, because I'm not sure if I can talk and share the screen at the same time because I think that's when I got cut off. Okay. So about the academic support information kit. Over the past few months, we have been steadily collecting a variety of resources on time management, study strategies, and managing stress. In each section of the kit, we have an overview of the topic, a summary of useful advice such as techniques to use, with linked resources, instructions on how to utilize the various resources such as apps or websites available. With this information, we hope to support students with their high school life by aiding them in developing skills that would better balance aspects of their academic and personal life, as well as improving student well-being as a whole. Right now, we are working on ways to compelling these resources into one directory to allow for ease for access, as well as potential forms of physical media such as posters, brochures, in order to share information about the kit more broadly. Now I would like to hand things over to Christina to discuss the podcast series.
Perfect. For the podcast series, the group is small but mighty. The group of senators here are a total of 3, including myself, and we hope that the podcast series educates the future students and families of the Edmonton Public Schools. To begin, the group will be recording at February 18th. It's a PD day at Ross Shepherd High School's Films and Media Recording Studio. This will include 3 guest speakers, not including ourselves, who will be coming in to do the interview. We will be interviewing one another to ask the Senate about a perspective on student life. 2 of the podcast members have gone into their current high schools and previous elementary schools to interview students and teachers with consent of FOIP forms, of course. We then hope to incorporate their questions and, more importantly, these 3 parts into the podcast series. If time allows, the Senate may decide to do a segment on the other senators' activities to allow for other events to gain more traction. In episode 1, the members hope to explain to the Senate, interview each other, elaborate on what the podcast series is, and touch on the previous episodes from the senators along with the future ones. Episode 2 will consist of another senator, me interviewing a division principal, life coach, and teacher. The podcast members will be continuing and talking to the principal about how to enter the high school system. We will talk to the life coach on how the students can prosper within the high school system, and we will talk to the teacher on how students can graduate successfully. With these podcast episodes, we hope to remove some of the stress that is caused by the fear of the unknown and explain exactly what the future and current students and families can expect. Finally, the last episode of the series will be the interviews conducted within the schools. The interviews will tackle frequently asked questions, common misconceptions for the future, etc. The podcast hopes that these and the previous and future episodes will finally relieve the stigma surrounding education school systems and excite the student body. Chloe will now share the plans for the remainder of the year.
In the coming month, we hope to continue developing our projects to completion and to fulfill the aims that each group established for their specific projects. We plan on continuing working in our groups and routinely seeking out input from peers, admin, and external resources. We're looking forward to reporting back to you in June with news of how our projects are turning out. On behalf of the Student Senate and my fellow student trustees, I would like to thank you all for your time and support in engaging with the Student Senate's work. At this time, we would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you for your presentation, and gold star for trying to get through all of the technical hiccups. So well done with the spontaneous making it work. So I will open up the floor to all trustees who may have questions or comments to share. I'll kick us off by just asking a quick question, going back to the career event that you have planned. You mentioned that you're going to be trying to recruit professionals to come and speak or be part of the event. You've got, this is being webcast live. There may be somebody out there who likes what they heard, wants to support students. They're a professional, they want to get involved. How do you suggest that they get in touch to say that they're interested, or what kind of ways that people can show their support or maybe volunteer their time for you?
I'm in the career exploration group, so I'll answer that question. And thank you, Madam Chair. Um, so right now we are currently looking for professionals through LinkedIn as well as different like university websites, and we will be sending out invitation letters to these professionals. And if any of them wants to support us, they can also email me or Miss Mills because um, she is our group supervisor, and if anyone's interested in coming and helping to present, we can always arrange and see if they want to be whether the speakers in the main area for the entire conference, or they would like to be a breakout room speaker. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So you're going and seeking out the people that you think would be great fit for your event. And of course, Miss Mills is a great resource for anybody who is particularly interested to go through. Perfect. Thank you for that. I see that Trustee Sherry O'Keefe would like to weigh in. Go ahead, Sherry.
Thank you. And thank you to our student senators. I think we can all say that when you come to board to present, it's one of our definitely exciting moments. Your live career exploration. My question is, you're running at 11 till 4. How many students, and maybe I missed that, are you anticipating might be able to be at the career fair at WP Wagner?
Just because of the technical delays, after the trustee asks the question, you can decide amongst yourselves who would like to answer it. We'll just simplify that way. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'll answer that question too. So currently we are working on having a Google form sent out to schools, high schools, and some junior highs about having attendees. So this is a talk that we haven't fully decided on, and then maybe back in June when we have the event running and done, we will have like a better idea because we're still on the planning phase of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I will now turn it to Trustee O'Keefe for a second question. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just imagine you'll have an overwhelming number of students who will want to attend. So I wish you the best with that. As well, the live diversity event, up to 100, first come, first serve. Will anything be virtual or recorded so that if they aren't able to attend, they might be able to, just like your podcast, be able to hear what went on amongst the speakers? I'm just curious.
Yes, I'll answer that question. Just to preface, it is almost 3 o'clock, so you might hear the school bell ring as I am at my school. But to continue on, the podcast group will be doing a segment on this. So if somebody misses the live career exploration event, yes, there will still be an opportunity for them to still figure out what's going on. And on top of that, our school will probably record this as we have a number of students within the films and media category who wanted to help out. And so we will probably have a little monologue video for people to watch and figure out what's going on before, during, and after the event.
Thank you. We'll head now to Trustee Sumar. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Sure, it was a bit nerve-wracking with all the technical glitches, but you both did an excellent job. So very much appreciate both of you sticking with it. Just wanted to double check because I missed this. In terms of the 2 live events that you're doing, can you just reshare the date, location, and times for both of those events, just so that information can be shared out?
And for some reason, we weren't hearing Trustee Christina. So Trustee Chloe, do you want to take that for now?
Yes, I think she just got cut off. But for our live career exploration event, the day will be April 17th at WP Wagner High School from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And for the live diversity event, that will happen on April 10th from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Ross Shepherd High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Trustee Sumar, do you have a second question?
Yes, thank you so much for that. That academic support kit sounds pretty awesome. Just wanted to check in, what's that kit going to look like? Is it just going to be, like a bit of an online resource that's shared with students? Is it going to be more of like a pamphlet style? What are you envisioning for kind of like the finished product with everything kind of put together? And I realize that you may not be on the academic support kit team, so I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here.
Yes, so it will mostly be an online kit where students can have access to it no matter where they are. And oh, Bella,
Oh, hi. Sorry.
do you
Sorry
want
to
to take over? Because
um
it's
sure. Yeah. My apologies for dropping out of the meeting. My internet on my computer has been quite faulty recently. Hopefully I'm able to stay connected better now since I've switched locations. As for the academic support kit, what we envision is that most of it is going to be in some sort of online directory because we thought that that was the best way to make it accessible to as many students as possible. Another consideration is as that we're still trying to figure out is as to where we're going to put all of these online resources that we've compiled. Like one consideration is linking it to the Student Senate website so that students are able to access it through there. But we're also trying to find ways of promoting it to students, such as making some physical brochures or physical posters so that students can like be more aware of its existence because you can now put them around schools or you can hand them out to students. Yeah. So thank you for the question. I hope that addressed it.
Thank you very much. Moving now to Trustee Nelson.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. This kind of ties into what Bella was saying in terms of the availability on the Student Senate website. I'm wondering if you are also linked into LinkedIn or Instagram. Do you have a way of reaching out to more students through their school's website? How do you reach as many kids as you can?
And go ahead, Trustee Chloe. Oh, I guess there we go. Student Trustee Bella, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. You brought in some very insightful considerations that our group hasn't necessarily thought of, such as to other means of reaching students through other apps such as LinkedIn or Instagram. We have considered an Instagram account, but I think our group decided ultimately that we might not have one centralized Instagram account as it would be difficult to determine who has the admin and like passing it on to the rest of the student senate and potential conflicting interests. So I think that while our directory will probably be some sort of just website with link to through brochures or posters, we can definitely do things like ask our peers or have our students themselves promote this, right? You could put brochures in schools or posters in school hallways, and then you could also have students share this with each other. Overall, we're hoping for sort of a mix of physical media like brochures, but also word of mouth through hopefully students actually using these resources and finding them helpful.
Thank you for that. We now have Trustee Hancock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Am I on? It's hard to see here.
Yes, you are on. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, kind of on the same wavelength as the past two trustees. It's an exciting work plan. It's very well organized and some really awesome ideas. And so some of the things that I thought about were exactly that. If we could explore more ways of being able to get your work out. not only just advertising your current work plan so we can get as many students involved, but all this work showing up on a website, and how can we get more students, and especially I was thinking new students to high school. I've had parents actually ask me about their students going into high school, the transition behind of that. And so a lot of what you have here would be very helpful for them. And so, I think that's definitely something we can explore. Maybe administration can help a bit with that. I was thinking school zone, even perhaps we could link or have some of this material put through there. But thank you so much for your work and for your presentation. It really was wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Trustee Hancock. I don't see any other trustees wishing to enter the queue. So I do very much want to thank our student trustees, Bella, Chloe, and Christina, for making the time and the effort to come and share with us about your work plan, and for all of your, just real good work in making the presentation go ahead in spite of things not quite going as planned with the screen sharing. So thank you very much on behalf of the board, and I wish you luck in the rest of your work here this year. We'll now move on to the next item on our agenda. We'll handle report number 3 as an omnibus. This is for the caucus committee report from the meeting held on November 28th, 2024. The special caucus committee report from the meeting held on December 5th, 2024. The caucus committee report from the meeting held on December 10th, 2024, and the special caucus committee report from the meeting held on January 28th, 2025. I'd like to acknowledge receipt of these reports and ask if there are any trustee comments or questions with respect to these reports. Seeing none, we will now move to our next agenda item, the School Resource Officer Program Evaluation Framework. I'd like to acknowledge receipt of the report and ask if there are any trustee comments or questions with respect to the report. I see, though, that we have a speaker coming up in the queue here. My notes don't say there's an introduction, but it looks like there may be. So let's go ahead and do that next. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, it's Daryl. I think that we were just trying to get into be available on screen to answer questions so that we don't have the delay going back and forth. So if you can move to trustee questions, we'll be here and available if that works.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. I will now open the agenda item to trustee questions, and we'll try and speed up this back and forth between questions and responses and all of that. So go ahead, trustees, enter your indication that you'd like to ask some questions on the School Resource Officer Program Evaluation Framework. Kicking us off is Trustee Sumar.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for this this report. It's very much appreciated. And as is the norm, I have quite a few questions about it. So I'm just diving into the framework itself. In the introduction, I think in the second paragraph, it looks like it talks about, and I don't think this is the first time it's mentioned in the report, but there is this notion that the program is being reimagined. Just wanted to get some more information about what exactly is meant by that. Are we talking about training? Are we talking about the folks themselves that are coming into schools? What and the objectives? What's entailed or encompassed within that statement when we're saying reimagining the program?
Thank you for that. We'll go to Ms. Peterson.
Thank you for the question. So the work with our partner, Edmonton Police Services, started last spring, and there was an opportunity to look at many factors of the previous SRO program and the work to prepare to reintroduce SROs into division schools at some point during the 24-25 school year. Administration, in partnership with EPS, took a look at all of the feedback from community, from staff, from students, from families, and were able to identify themes. I'm not going to go through all of those themes, but I am going to highlight some things that surfaced in the looking and examining of the feedback. There were questions raised around the transparency of hiring practices. There was questions seeking clarity around the intent of the program. There was information that signaled there was an opportunity for improved training for SRO officers coming into division schools. There was questions raised around possibly a lack of transparency. There was encouragement for stronger ongoing monitoring of the program. And also it was noted that police in isolation and the absence of a wraparound model were not going to be supportive of youth who were facing challenges. These are conversations that we embarked upon in partnership with Edmonton Police Services very early, late spring and through the summer, and have been ongoing conversation to inform the reintroduction of SROs into division schools just last week. And so the conversations did provide an opportunity to look carefully at hiring and how the division had voice in that work. The conversations enabled us to clearly articulate through an MOU the intent and purpose of why we believed we were working in partnership in support of safe school environments and in support of students. It was an opportunity to look at a very rigorous training, orientation, and onboarding program that involved not just SRO officers, but also our school leadership teams that would be welcoming an SRO into their school community. And there was an opportunity to pull together the evaluation framework that has been shared with you today.
Thank you for that. Trustee Sumar, second question.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for that robust response, Ms. Peterson. Now, when I'm looking through whether it's the phase 1 or phase 2 evaluations, I think it's this question applies to both, which is in many of these cases, in terms of the outcomes, we're talking about improving a particular outcome or increasing this particular piece. So I'm just trying to gauge, when it comes to any one of those outcomes where we're talking about changes either up or down, what are we using in terms of baseline data to show whether or not what the fluctuations of that data are? And is, when it comes to measuring the success of those outcomes, are we just talking about, strictly numbers? Are we setting particular goals in mind to achieve when we're talking about increases in terms of particular outcomes or decreases in other outcomes? Just trying to get a better understanding of how the outcomes and success is being measured. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Peterson or any of the other division staff who are available to answer questions. Just signal yourself in the queue there.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to answer, I think, every question that you posed there, Trustee Sumar. So hopefully I get all of them. If I don't, please remind me if I've missed something. So the evaluation framework that you have in front of you today is the starting point. It reflects the collaboration of Division Central staff working with the school leaders who have welcomed SROs back into their school community this past week, and working with our partners in Edmonton Police Services. The framework is a beginning point. There is still a lot of work to do to add the meat and potatoes to the bones of this framework. And so when you say, what are we using as our baseline? We are going to be working with members of the school community, staff, students, families, for their perceptions around their school community prior to the reintroduction of an SRO, and then what it has felt like in their school community since the welcoming and the reintroduction of an SRO coming back into their school community. You asked if we would be looking at things that were numbers or anecdotal, and the evaluation intends to have both approaches. There will be data that we have around our school community from things like our division feedback survey. And then there's an opportunity to use focus groups, anecdotal information to gain a better understanding of the lived experience or the perception of the members of the school community when they have an SRO as a valued member of their team. So the details around specifically the how and the strategies that we're taking are going to be further worked through in the coming weeks and months for phase 1. And then obviously that work will continue next fall as we prepare for the phase 2 evaluation.
Thank you for that. I'll just insert myself into the queue here. One of the things that we heard while the whole discussion around SROs was happening was concern when there's a concern maybe from a particular student or from groups of students around having an SRO. Now, I understand there are those focus groups and things, but what's being done in phase 1 of your evaluation? I'm looking at some of your key tools there in that third column. What about tracking, say, if there is a complaint, so the number of complaints, the nature of complaints, how satisfactorily that has been resolved or worked through with the person who may have had that concern? I think that's one part that I heard very loudly and clearly during that discussion, and just want to double check that that is in fact part of this evaluation framework right from the get-go. Thanks. Guess back to Ms. Peterson. Oh,
I'll start with this, and then Dr. Wright may wish to further expand. So each of our school communities did work to assess their readiness to welcome an SRO back into the school community. And then they did work, once they were actually confirmed that they would be receiving one of the 6 SROs, they did work to prepare to welcome or introduce the SRO into their school community. This would look unique for each school community as principals are building relationships and understanding how the students that they serve feel about the opportunity to have an SRO in their school community. And as each school gets to know their SRO, they're also going to understand how students are responding to the presence of an SRO in their school building, and they will be supporting students through that relationship building, through that connecting. That would include also addressing students who have discomfort or students who have concerns, taking questions from families, and within the evaluation, we would have an opportunity to be capturing any of those aspects of the model as well.
hello, Dr. Wright, go ahead.
Thank you for the question. And, Ms. Peterson clearly articulated how that would fit with the evaluation framework. I'd like to speak to it from the principal perspective and the school-based perspective that my colleagues would have. As part of the evaluation framework, and the development of our communication structures, we have 2 really unique opportunities to look at and really place a premium on continuous improvement in the program. So when we look at the work that we're done, or if we look at a concern that has been raised, we have a number of opportunities and different ways of moving forward to address those concerns. The first would be we have a close working relationship with the sergeants in the SRO unit, and each of our SROs report to a sergeant that we can work with directly to rectify any challenges that we might have, questions or concerns. And so principals have had the opportunity to get to know and not only work with their SRO, but also with the sergeant attached to that SRO. We also have established a community of practice, as well as an ongoing cohort that has been working this year with high school principals. And that cohort gives us a very collaborative working space where we can discuss challenges and opportunities within a collaborative setting where we have the opportunity to tease out common challenges, but also to look at what solutions could be or different opportunities there might be to address a situation that's been raised. As principals, we know our school contexts are very unique, but more often than not, we do have a lot in common across the division. And so these opportunities to be with our colleagues, to talk about opportunities to improve the program and to improve supports for students in our school communities is something that's really welcomed by the principals and will help us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You actually zoomed into my second question, was around another key piece that I heard was the real importance from principals to make sure that the SRO, that the school culture was the focus and that the SRO wasn't there to try and change that culture, but they were there to try and fit into the culture that the school had created through the principal, through the staff, through the students, through the families. And so it sounds like there is an opportunity to ensure that, you know, we remain focused on students first. We remain focused on the ability of the principal and the school to maintain the culture of their school and to work with the SRO in that way. So thank you for jumping into that piece, which leads me to my second question. I've had a couple of people reach out since the agenda was posted, just wondering a little bit more about, we have these 6 SROs starting right now. We're just getting started on the evaluation. And then more SROs will be coming online in a little while. Could you go through sort of the, you know, the wonder that's coming my way is, why are we adding additional officers before we've evaluated the first cohort in, you know, maybe a couple of phases? So if you could maybe speak to that, the phasing of the evaluation versus the phasing in of new officers and what the thinking is behind there, that'd be quite helpful. Thank you. I mean, I think we'll go first to the superintendent. I see he's signaled that he'd like to speak.
Thanks. Sorry, we've got a little text system going on here with Nancy and Lisa, so I appreciate their answers. I just want to clear up a misconception that somehow the introduction of 6 officers was tied to a staged approach with the reintroduction of school resource officers. In working with the Edmonton Police Service over the past several months, it became clear that they too are experiencing staffing challenges. The demands, for officers across the city and the restarting of a school resource officer program created some human resource challenges for the Edmonton Police Service. They were able and committed to an introduction of 6 officers, in as early as January, and of course we had the training piece, and then the formal starting of our schools at the start of semester 2. But based on their capacity to be able to recruit, highly skilled, experienced people to serve as school resource officers, we did in fact stage it, and we will be doing ongoing evaluation. This does give us an opportunity to take a look at our successes and areas for improvement in stage 1 with the introduction of additional officers, but our intention is to continue to evaluate yearly, as we introduce officers to schools. And I would just remind everyone as well that the schools have the ability in a site-based model to determine whether or not they would like a school resource officer in their school. So our initial 6 principals had signaled that they are ready, that they're working with their school communities, and their school communities are ready. and we anticipate additional schools being available or signaling that they're available when additional officers become available. So I hope that provides any clarification. If I missed anything, Nancy or Lisa, please chip in. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing Nancy or Lisa jumping in there. We'll move to Trustee Hancock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to our staff for this report and all the work that they've put into this. I wanted to ask if you could share a bit about the process of implementing the resource officers into school with regards to the students and families, how that process went about, whether, if you were able to hold a separate session on it, or how did you introduce them into the schools?
I'll go to Ms. Peterson.
For the question. There were multiple steps along the way. First, very early in the fall, schools had to identify if they felt their school community would be ready to welcome an SRO. And so schools went back and they connected with staff, students, and families, and they talked about the opportunity to have this staffing role as a part of their school team. And if they felt that their school community was ready for that work and people were open to receiving this role into their school community, that moved things forward. We worked in partnership with Edmonton Police Services. As you'd heard our superintendent indicate, they had the capacity to introduce 6 officers into division schools in February. So there was matching up to identify 6 division schools. Once schools were confirmed that they would be receiving an SRO in February, they then shifted their focus to the work of preparing to welcome the SRO into the school community. I can go under the hood a little bit about what this might have looked like in one of our schools, as it would have been unique across all 6 school communities. But here's a great example of what identifying readiness and then preparing to welcome looked like. In one of our schools, where we serve a significant number of members of the Somali community, one of the staff from the school held focus groups, they did hallway connections, they reached out to families, and they asked them very specifically, how would you feel about an SRO being a member of our school team? And through these conversations, they learned that families were eager to welcome an SRO back into the school community, and they heard definitively from families that they felt that having an SRO enhanced the feeling of safety for themselves and their children within the school community. So at schools, it was conversation, it was talking about what they felt would be a positive impact or a benefit of having an SRO, surfacing questions of concern, and from there, determining that they were ready to have this staff member join their team.
Thank you. Second question or follow-up, Trustee Hancock?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. The second question is around the key measures. I see that you have surveys and focus groups, which I really appreciate, those 2 types of sort of qualitative measurements. And then you have this administrative data one, and we're talking about recording and tracking of activities and incidences. And I was wondering if you could share a little bit about the quality or quantitative data that you would be sort of tracking and using.
Go ahead, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you for the question. So we're exploring what data would make sense to include in the evaluation. Both Edmonton Police Services and Edmonton Public Schools have a lot of data available to ourselves. And what data is a good fit for this story of belonging and safety? And here's some examples of what we would be looking at. Through Edmonton Police Services, they gather data around the officer's time, because the role of a school resource officer might look a little bit different than some of the other traditional roles that officers have in our broader community. And so officers track things like giving a presentation to a class of students. They would document the nature of the presentation. So it might be a presentation about online safety. It might be a presentation about vaping. They would also track the approximate number of students that were able to participate in that presentation. So it could be a class of 35 students, or it could be a school-wide assembly of 550 students. They also track data around working with school administration, around supporting student situations. They would also track data around things like charges laid. This particular piece of data, as we've worked with EPS, has an interesting backstory to it. We learned through looking at some exemplar data from Edmonton Police Services work with Edmonton Catholic schools. When you look at the concept of charges laid, it reflects two different pieces of data. It is the number of charges that were laid against students, which is very minimal. And then it reflected the number of charges where Edmonton Police Services laid charges against an adult in the community when a student of the school had been victimized. And so a student felt comfortable enough to approach the SRO in their school, talk about something that had happened to them. The SRO would work in collaboration with their peers and were able to bring charges against an adult who'd caused harm to a student. So these are just some examples of the type of data that would go into an evaluation, and that would be data that would help to show a picture of what an SRO's officer's time looked like in a school community. We also know that we would have data that we collect internally in Edmonton Public. We are curious to see what will happen with student attendance data, with data that we have around perceptions of safety in a school community. And so as we continue to map out and add more detail to the evaluation strategy, we'll begin to definitively confirm what data sets will be important in the evaluation going forward.
Thanks, Nancy. And I see Superintendent Robertson would like to supplement. Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. One of the things, just to build on Nancy's response a little bit, and thank you, Nancy, for that. I am particularly interested also in the area of diversion. So should we have a student, who may, do something, at school that, leads to, a breaking of the law and a potential charge. I really believe that schools are places that kids need to learn from their mistakes, and embracing the Edmonton Police Services partners in this work and looking at ways that we can utilize diversion. Obviously, this is the Edmonton Police Services work, but I think the appetite, from our partners in working with us in schools is just that. How can we provide learning experiences for kids should something in a school community happen? How can we utilize that diversion and ensure that that kids can have an opportunity to learn from their mistakes and transition from our school division ultimately to lead a life of dignity and fulfillment as they transition to post-secondary studies in the world of work. So I hope that helps, but I would really like to see that as and will be part of the evaluation.
Thank you for that. We'll now go to Trustee O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Mine has now become more comment than question. My colleagues have asked most of the questions. My comment is I was really pleased to see a team approach. I noticed, and both Ms. Peterson, Ms. Wright, and the superintendent have indicated that the training was done as a team approach with Edmonton Public, with the SROs, with the leadership teams, school teams involved in it. As well, the information provided that administrators also have contact with the SRO's immediate supervisors should they need it. I noticed there's developing materials to support communicating with staff. One of my questions had been, how did the school know whether they were ready? And the idea that there were focus groups and our schools reached out to students, staff, and parents to see if they were ready for this. And then the next one was, how are the SROs introduced back into the schools? And again, each of the communities would have done that differently. So thank you for this very comprehensive report, and I look forward to seeing the first stage reported back in the fall. Thank you.
Going now to Trustee Nelson.
Great, thank you very much. When we're looking at key measurement tools, my question is around, it's more than just a feedback survey. So we have division feedback survey. It has some questions in it. Are we going to be able to pull out specific to those schools to see how their responses have changed or not changed? And you talk about school surveys. Is that something that the division is going to develop and present to these 6 schools? And would we also compare that information to the other high schools or junior highs that have access to an SRO? It's kind of a loaded big question.
Thanks, Trustee Nelson. Going to the superintendent.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. So what I would say is that we actually need some time to develop, some of these tools. Certainly it's really difficult in the division feedback survey to sort of pin down a cause and effect around feelings of safety and feelings of belonging. While these, some of those metrics, are important and would be part of an evaluation, I think that we need to work closely with our principals who are, in schools working alongside of school resource officers to carefully develop some tools so that we have the ability to do a great job in terms of an ongoing evaluation of the SRO program as it's kind of emerging as a reimagined program. Lots of great collaboration, and of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we also have to work alongside the Edmonton Police Service. And while we have a basic framework for evaluation, there's much more work to be done and data to be collected. And prior to sort of painting the picture of what a final report might look like, or so on and so forth. So, anyways, I hope that answers your question, Trustee Nelson. But there's lots of work to be done, and we'll be engaging our staff and school principals and the Edmonton Police Service in sort of finalizing those tools that will be used in the evaluation and providing that both quantitative and qualitative data in a report to board in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Trustee Nelson, second question.
Great, thank you. And I know it's going to be a process that changes over time as we figure out where people fit in the continuum. I also am really glad to see that there's presentations for families. And I'm sure it's too early to ask what those might be, but I wonder if Dr. Wright or Ms. Peterson have any, from their perspective, any idea of what those presentations might be going forward. And I realize this is early in the process and it might not be a question that can be answered.
We'll go to Dr. Wright.
Thank you for the question. We are really excited about the educative role that the SRO can play within the school setting. And one of the drivers of presentations at the high school level, I think we're going to see those topics emerging out of the conversations we have with our youth. There are some very youth relevant topics things that kids are wrestling with, they're grappling with, they have questions and wonderings about. They are already bringing those forward to SROs in the past week, although they've only been in schools for 5 days. We've had students come forward and ask for presentations and information around cyber safety and digital citizenship and how to protect themselves online. We've had students who've come and wanted to know if there would be an opportunity to learn about conflict resolution, how to negotiate the different dynamics and the challenges of interacting with peers at the high school level. We know our students have traditionally benefited from presentations around vaping and drugs and how to protect themselves and how they can seek out resources if they need support. But I think what we're really going to see is that the students themselves are going to bring forward questions of interest and of need to our administration teams, to our SROs. The one, if I might give one example, the number one thing our SROs have been asked about this week has been around how do you become a police officer? How do I get involved with the cadet program, with the service? Is there an opportunity for me to learn more about this? So just even from a career pathway perspective and, pathways into criminology and forensic science and so forth, our SROs have had some interesting conversations. And so some of that information and education will come through one conversation at the right moment with the right student. Other times it might be a presentation with a class with an established agenda. It could be a brown bag lunch session for interested students, or it might be information shared at a school-wide assembly. But we definitely know that that'll look different in different school settings, but we will certainly be sharing the resources we've developed amongst the schools to leverage as best we can with all of our division students. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Looks like we will be going into a second round of questions, and Trustee Sumar, you're first.
Thank you very much. The superintendent brought up the idea of diversion, and that's one of the outcomes that's mentioned, I think, in the what's referred to as the third domain within the framework. Just wanted to tease that out a little bit more when we're talking about diversion, and what outcomes we're going to be used to measure that particular outcome, as well as whether or not other pieces are also going to be evaluated in tandem. Things like high school attendance, for example, or academic success or high school completion, things like that. Are those going to be paired together with that diversion aspect of things? Thank you.
Go ahead, Superintendent Robertson.
Sorry, thanks very much for the question. So I would also welcome either Nancy or Lisa to chime in here as well. The whole process of diversion is actually a process that involves primarily the Edmonton Police Service, and there are certain ways in which they are able to implement a plan for a youth, a child, student, in an effort to avoid entry into the criminal justice system. Really, we are not necessarily involved in the creation of a diversion program, but what I'm hoping that an evaluation would show is that we are together making every effort to provide students with an opportunity to learn from their experience and meet the conditions of that, whatever that diversion decision is, and showing that they're able to remain in school, whether or not attendance and student success is part of that. I would also offer that attendance and student success are very complex. This could be part of it, and hopefully it would be supportive. We'll have to take a look. I do appreciate the ideas floated by our trustee and in terms of considering diversion. We would really need to work in collaboration with EPS and take a look at what those metrics might be or how that can be presented in an evaluation framework for sure. I'm not sure, Nancy or Lisa, if the conversations have gotten that detailed so far in the area of diversion, but if they have, please, let us know a little bit more information.
And go ahead, Nancy or Lisa, if you did want to speak.
Thank you for the question. In respect to diversion, we have had a conversation around how we will be able to track the outcome for students who have an opportunity to go through a diversion experience. So we may know that there were 20 youth who had the opportunity to go through a diversion experience, and we would be able to then quantify the path forward and the result of that work with each of those youth. In respect to the question around linking it to high school completion, attendance data, and those kinds of things, right now, when we've looked at how to quantify and how to share the outcome of the diversion work, it becomes more anecdotal in nature, that the youth that have an opportunity to experience diversion through anecdotally understanding their path forward, their journey, through understanding the impact that diversion had to help them get on track, maybe get reconnected back into their school community, maybe be able to reflect more on that life after high school and what they hope for themselves after high school. It would be more of an anecdotal perspective. We don't at this time in the work of developing the evaluation have a quantifiable matrix set out that links different data in our system to the concept of diversion.
Second or follow-up question, Trustee Sumar? Oh. 1 second, I saw Dr. Wright come back in the queue. So go ahead, Dr. Wright.
Thank you for the opportunity to just build on that. When the superintendent spoke about diversion first as a formalized agreement plan to avoid criminalization of youth, that was something that we unpacked in our training. And just from a school perspective, what was of real importance to us was a part that we really play a critical role in, and that is around alternative measures and different ways that we support students, as the superintendent said, when they make a poor choice. In high school, kids make poor choices and mistakes need to be opportunities for them to learn. And so the conversation with school administrators, SROs, and our counselors and student services teams during training was really around how do we provide those opportunities for teaching and learning within the school setting, but also how do we help students learn to repair the harm and restore relationships so that they can work and learn in a very dignified way within the school and move forward with their futures. We also have spent a lot of time thinking about, students who make those poor choices and how do we wrap them around with supports? How do we ensure that there are different interventions or supports that can facilitate success in the future? What are those connections? And we're really excited that our partners bring with them a variety of agencies and access to other supports that maybe we haven't traditionally been able to access for our students. So certainly, although we're excited about opportunities to support diversion when that's needed with youth, we're really looking at what are some of those restorative practices, mediation, conflict resolution, and ways to help our students be supported so that they can make better choices in the future.
Thank you for that. Now, Trustee Sumar, second question.
Thank you very much, and thanks for that additional context, Dr. Wright. Just jumping back to one of my colleagues' previous questions, and I think something that the speaker brought up about, phase 2 implementation and onboarding additional officers. Just question that pops to my mind is that have there been discussions about where exactly those officers will be based, and if so or if not, when might community or parents or even students have access to that information?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We'll go to Ms. Peterson.
Thank you for the question. The work that we're doing right now to welcome the 6 officers into our schools, they've been there a week or just over a week, is going to help inform how to identify the 6 next schools. So Dr. Wright has been working with our high school principals around this work with the reintroduction of the SRO program, and high schools are doing the work in the coming weeks and months to assess their school's readiness to welcome an SRO. And at some point before the end of this school year, we would be able to identify the next group of schools, along with confirmation of Edmonton Police Services also being able to confirm that they were actually able to hire officers that would be appropriate to go into that next set of schools. Within this work, what we are doing and learning in phase 1 of the evaluation would help to inform how those schools are onboarded and officers are prepared to go into those schools.
Thank you for that. And Dr. Wright.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Peterson. Prior to the assignment of SROs to schools, there is the phase where we are assessing the readiness. And so at this point in time, the work with the high school principal group is really about asking our principal colleagues who feel that there may be a need to have an SRO within their respective school setting for whatever reason, to contemplate 3 things. And the first thing we've asked them to come prepared to meet with us a little bit later this spring, being able to talk about how they would assess the readiness of their school community, that is the students, the staff, the family members in their school community. How would you assess the readiness? How would the SRO position or role impact a culture of safety and belonging in the school and be part of a strength-based multidisciplinary approach to support students? And the third thing we've asked principals to reflect upon is how they would create a collaborative approach between the school resource officer and any community partners that are already working and are established within their school setting. So at this time, high school principals are contemplating those 3 areas. And sometime later this spring, we will bring together the principals who believe that they are ready to welcome an SRO to share that information with us and to help us make a decision around which of the schools, pending the availability of officers from the Edmonton Police Services, will be able to move forward with the next stage, which is the work we do not only to ready the community, but also to welcome an SRO into the school itself.
Good, thank you for that. I'll just make another brief comment by sharing that I was at a school council meeting. It was a hybrid meeting not too long ago, and the SRO happened to be introduced by the principal to the school community there. And it did seem like there was definitely a keenness and openness to, and a real curiosity and a lot of questions around, well, how will the SRO be introduced to students, and a lot of suggestions from families and things like that. So, do appreciate that there was a bit of a process around readiness. That joint training really came through in that particular meeting as something that was very much valued by the school and by the SRO. So I did just want to share that bit of tidbit that I was able to experience at that school council meeting. And just, I guess, one other quick question. When we think about the sort of the questions and the discussion that trustees have brought forward today, and thinking about this evaluation framework and its evolving nature, just wondering what could be done to really, bolster up sort of the difference, right? The reimagining between what was before, what was now, or what is now, as the program continues to be implemented and those conversations continue to happen between schools, the school community, and of course, Edmonton Police Service. So as the next report comes, I would be quite keen to really hear quite a bit about those differences and how those are going. So I don't know if there is any comment on that piece, um, or we can leave it at that as a bit of a rhetorical comment. Okay. Seeing no other, go ahead, Dr. Wright.
The past and really listen to the voices and perspectives of the students, the staff, and the families we serve. And that is certainly driving how we're reimagining the program for the future. One of the things that our principal group has learned through this journey this past year has been really the importance of good, transparent, and clear communication. And it starts with our students, engaging our students and listening to them, but also being able to articulate to them the evolution of the program and being responsive to the difficult questions they've asked us. Being prepared to say, I don't know as a school administrator, and seeking out an answer and bringing back some possibilities to students and giving them a real voice in understanding how that program could evolve in the school with their input. We've also learned that the communications materials that we've produced together, that we've co-constructed as principals along with central departments such as communications, have been really instrumental in articulating the purpose of the program, some of the changes that are involved in the program, and what parents and community members could expect to see. And we're finding that, we hear that saying, clarity is kindness. And we learn that as we are more open and clear in our communications, our community has been very responsive and the dialogue has been very healthy and has helped us really move our work forward. So certainly has given us an opportunity to be reflective and to focus on continuous improvement of the program as we walk alongside our students, our partner, and their families. Thank you.
Good, thank you for that. Seeing no other trustees entering the queue to speak, I do want to thank administration for bringing forward this evaluation framework so that we can have a conversation at public board around the program and how it will be evaluated and what we might expect as the program continues to evolve. So thank you very much for this, and we will look at what item we want to tackle next. Next on the agenda is comments from the public and staff group representatives on educational issues, but that's time sensitive to 5 p.m. So I'm going to suggest that we actually, let's see, it's 4 o'clock. Why don't we skip ahead to item I, which is other committee, board representatives, and trustee reports. Just asking if there is any trustee wishing to offer a report at public board, either about their committee, board representative, or a report from their board. Trustee Nelson.
Great, thank you very much. I just want to provide an update on the foundation. The Edmonton Public Foundation supports our students with the top-ups for tummies, the Chromebooks, the basketball courts. But we have a challenge out to everyone right now, and that is to get everyone that you know to sign up to all the social media platforms as well as the newsletter, and then invite 10 friends to do the same thing. So you can find the foundation social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, X, and the foundation's website at foundation.epsb.ca. And there you can sign up for our newsletter and hear everything that's going on with the foundation. And a huge thank to our sponsors who have helped with providing all these wonderful opportunities for our kids and our families in terms of their mental health, in terms of their tummies, as well as our Chromebooks and our basketball program. So thank you very much. And again, I challenge everyone who's listening to sign up for the foundation social media platforms and get 10 friends to do the same thing. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update. I believe I follow the foundation on all of those sites, but I'm going to just go and double check, and I will definitely take you up on challenging 10 people I know to sign up as well. Thank you for that, Trustee Nelson. Going now to Trustee Sumar.
Thank you very much. Just starting with a quick update on behalf of the Policy Review Committee. So I think we talked about the work plan at one of our last board meetings, but I think it's important to also talk about the work that we've been doing, prior to and since the approval of that work plan. So just so that folks are aware, we've been working steadily on ensuring that we put together a couple of policies on the review of school names and naming of school buildings. So hopefully that comes out before the end of our term here. We've also been working on reviewing the policy on student and staff wellness and completing our annual review of the student behavior and conduct policies. We've also taken a cursory look at some other policies as well, some of the more timely ones like personal mobile devices and artificial intelligence, but many of those conversations are going to be quite limited in nature just because there's already great coverage in terms of the existing policies and admin regs that we have, but potentially more work, obviously more work to come always when it comes to the Policy Review Committee. Taking that chair's hat off, just a quick update for everything and anything Ward G related. First, I just want to thank everybody who's been plugging away and putting some emails in my inbox. I apologize that it's taken me some time to respond. Just know that I am doing my best to read each and every email as they come in. Also, just been a few meetings that I've been having. So I'd want to thank the Millwoods Christian School Council for inviting me to their meeting in late January. I also sat down with a few city councilors to talk about a whole bunch of city-related pieces, including playgrounds, traffic safety, and the School Construction Accelerator Program. And finally, I met with a couple of folks from the Safarish Network, which is a group dedicated to connections and collaboration within the South Asian community. Conversation was focused on education and awareness, and I look forward to future collaboration with that group. Thank you so much.
Great. I'll just share just a little bit from the ward, and that continue to appreciate being able to attend school council meetings in a hybrid or virtual sense when possible. And just a real shout out to the school council executives from around Ward F that have really sort of gotten a lot of energy behind this idea of collaboration and supporting one another in the work of school councils. So really excited about some of the work that we're doing together to try and bring people together in a supportive community to be able to ask those quick questions, get some mentorship from one another, to be able to do a really good job as a school community in support of students and their learning. So I did just want to give a shout out to that group. Seeing no other trustees with signaling with a report, we will now move on to item J on the agenda, which is trustee and board requests for information. Are there any trustee or board requests for information? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Trustee Sumar.
Thank you very much, and I'll share this wording with the recording secretary shortly, but I would like to serve notice of motion that the Board of Trustees advocate to the federal government to provide a timeline to applicants, including school boards, as to when they can expect to receive funds that have already been approved, and to clarify procedures and timelines to more expeditiously review existing and future requests submitted under Jordan's principle. Thank you.
All right, are there any other notices of motion? Seeing none, we will take a pause before items L and M. So it is currently 4:06 p.m. We will reconvene at 5 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, everyone. We are now going to reconvene our meeting at 5 p.m., beginning with item H on the agenda, comments from the public and staff group representatives on educational issues. We have 18 registered speakers for this item. I will outline the process that we will follow. I'll then call on the speakers to provide their comments. The Board of Trustees values input from everyone who cares about the education of our children. This is why the board meeting includes an invitation to members of the public and staff representatives to address issues they believe are of importance to education. Speakers have been advised that the board meeting is being audio recorded as well as webcast live. Please note that as the chair, I have full authority to maintain decorum and order of the meeting to ensure a welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe environment, which includes interrupting any speaker who makes critical statements about particular individuals or groups of people, whether named or identifiable by context, ruling the speaker out of order and terminating the speaker's privilege to address the Board of Trustees. Further, the Education Act provides that no person shall disturb or interrupt the proceedings of a board meeting. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes to make their comments. Thank you in advance for your cooperation in maintaining respect for the proceedings. I will now call on the registered speakers to present in the following order. First, Sarah Dahl. Second, Holly Nickel. Third, Rosemary Jordan. Fourth, Nicole Renaud. 5, Marin Edwards de la O. 6, Salman Kovaled. 7, Daisy and Martin Doyle. 8, Brad Boyd. 9, Wanda Chell. 10, Taylor Carson. 11, Ashley Loom Levesque. 12, Nicole Biner. 13, Andre Buzenius. 14, Marjorie Marshall. 15, Lena Youssef. 16, J. Mark Smith. 17, Athena Gordon. 18, Carly Chen. For ease of technology in this virtual meeting, please note that we will move directly from one speaker to the next. So please be prepared to provide your comments in the order that it was just provided. The moderator will say your name and then begin your time to speak. Thank you very much. We will now begin with our first speaker.
Our first speaker is Sarah Dahl. Sarah Dahl, your microphone is now live.
Hi, my name is Sarah Dahl. I'm a disability advocate and parent of 2 disabled students. Since this board won't ensure transparency, I'm here with another update on its discriminatory use of seclusion rooms. I will keep reporting until every single door is removed. To catch everyone up, in September, FOIP data revealed that the 23-24 seclusion room usage didn't match the excuses for their need. EPSB was the province's top offender using these rooms on disabled kids exclusively, who are mostly under 12. Worst of all, a few schools accounted for most uses, some daily, debunking the last resort crisis-only claim. So what's been happening this year? There's good news and bad news. First off, public accountability seems to be encouraging reduced usage. Numbers steadily declined through fall. Last year, nearly 1,500 seclusions took place before Christmas break. This year, just over 1,100, a decrease of 25%. Many top offending schools, many having multiple emergencies a day, have been able to halt use entirely, close their rooms, or drop usage by significant amounts. The division is also closing rooms faster than ever before. Since summer, 72 rooms have shut down compared to only 35 last year. With 28 of the 31 rooms built over the summer going unused, I hope you will not repeat that funding mistake. But it was a bumpy start. Data broken down by month shows that 27 unique students were secluded in just the first 2 days of school. September 24 showed a 30% increase over September 23. Also concerning, new top schools replaced old ones, and concentrated overuse seems to be worsening. Last year, the top 8 schools made up 50%. This year, the top 5 account for 57. This school just isn't going great for most disabled students. Locking them in seclusion rooms has shifted to locking them out of classrooms entirely. Now, with the power to send home any child deemed as a safety risk, and with 60% of staff who are certified to seclude students on strike, I sincerely hope that not one single seclusion has taken place since January 13th. This data, of course, belongs to the public and will be posted on Hold My Hand Alberta social media later today. To the Board of Trustees, in nearly 4 years, you have allowed over 9,840 seclusions to take place and spent millions building these rooms. Your schools have armed police officers, but no EAs. You have publicly advocated for disabled students only once, requesting a new standard for special education. Only later to request an exemption to the Education Act, sacrificing the rights of your most vulnerable students to protect yourselves. This set off a chain of such exemptions across Alberta, and now a new ministerial order allowing any child to be deemed a safety risk for any reason to be excluded from any school in Alberta for any length of time. I'm asking you yet again to reflect on how your actions and inactions have harmed disabled students and change course. Also, please just pay your support workers a living wage and get them back to work. Your schools are descending into chaos and the students are learning from all of this. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Holly Nickel. Holly, your microphone is not on. You're muted. We still
Hi
can't
there,
hear.
and I'm just wondering if, moderator, we could begin Holly's time once her microphone is turned on. Thanks. Holly, do you want to do a quick test? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can. All right. So, moderator, if you want to just go ahead and restart that time and let Holly know when she can begin. Thanks.
Okay, Holly, you can start now.
Hello, my name is Holly Nickel, and I am the mother of 2 equity-deserving EPSB students. First off, I'd like to acknowledge how wonderful it is that we are all able to enjoy the accessibility of meeting and speaking virtually today. I hope this continues to be a consistent option for speakers moving forward and isn't just a situational convenience. When drafting this speech for the now canceled January meeting, I plan to once again call out this division's outdated and cruel belief that locking disabled children in cells is ever necessary. After this board failed to stop the construction of 31 new seclusion rooms, I was disappointed, but then the school stepped up and decommissioned 28 of them. Clearly, there's been a disconnect between this board and the schools that you serve when nearly $1 million is wasted on something supposedly essential only for the schools to reject it. Is this due to site-based decision-making, or is administration out of touch with what the schools actually need? These questions make me wonder if Edmonton Public needs to rethink how it operates. Shortly after being elected, this board developed the division strategic plan for 22 to 26. The first priority on this plan was to build on outstanding learning opportunities for all students. Notice how I did not say build more seclusion rooms. The plan then divides this priority into 3 goals, with the first goal being to recognize and support the diverse learning needs of all students. There's that phrase again, all students. Not all neurotypical students, not all non-coded students, just simply all students. I'm struggling to understand how the division requesting a ministerial order to strip away the education rights of its most vulnerable students aligns with your goals and priorities. It's becoming glaringly obvious the government is attacking public education on all fronts. As elected trustees, it is your job to protect the students you serve, not create additional roadblocks. I can't imagine any of you ran for this position 4 years ago intending this to be our present reality. How did we get here? Do you even realize the impact of your decisions? As trustees, your responsibilities are to represent the interests and reflect the values of your communities. Your role as an advocate and steward of public education is to fight for the system you were chosen to represent. If you won't stand up to these attacks, who will? I am urging all of you to take action and open the lines of communications. Be transparent about the fiscal situation that is hindering the resolution of this labor dispute. Stop the misleading communications. The public deserves to understand the true gravity of the situation. Now more than ever, it is imperative that you step up and represent us as you were elected to do so. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rosemary Jordan. Your microphone is now live.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Board of Trustees. I am just here to ask some questions. The board actions convey a laser-focused approach to withholding needed supports for the most vulnerable students, the disabled ones, like my child, as if coercing families to put their disabled kids in segregated classrooms wasn't enough. Forcing families like mine to bus their disabled kids, sometimes hours per day, outside their catchment wasn't enough. Withholding curriculum, report cards, and testing for some disabled students like my child wasn't enough. Withholding access to evidence-based assessments for learning disabilities wasn't enough. Perceptible unwillingness to meaningfully provide intervention that aligns with the province's ELA curriculum author, Dr. Georges Giroux's work, and widely implement science of reading evidence-based interventions, as well as Canada-wide Human Rights Commission Right to Read recommendations wasn't enough. Advocating to the province to keep seclusion rooms wasn't enough. Allocating significant education funding dollars to add more seclusion rooms and also possibly increasing the utilization of them, aligning their use mainly for disabled children like mine wasn't enough. Getting rid of SLP and OT and other interdisciplinary supports en masse. As far as I can tell, it's been at least about a 50, maybe 70% reduction during a worldwide pandemic and seemingly onward wasn't enough. Allocating significant education funding, the equivalent of thousands of hours of OT and SLP billings, to bring back SROs instead of bringing back SLPs and OTs, who are evidence-based interventions for academic learning, regulation, and socialization wasn't enough. Denying disabled students in-person accessible learning, which is in contradiction to basic human rights and conventions that our country is signatory to, wasn't enough. Seeking a ministerial order and or using it as cover to deny our kids rightful access to equitable and or in-person learning opportunities wasn't enough. And silencing parent voices that seek protections and supports for our disabled kids who are currently in crisis by canceling a recent public board meeting wasn't enough. Actions convey a coordinated, comprehensive strategy that all but ensures our disabled students have no avenue for successful outcomes within your purview. This will come at a great cost to Alberta, as children with disabilities are not modest human capital. They are, however, the inspiration and standard by which we should all aspire to. I'm just asking for my disabled child, when will this laser-focused approach to restrict meaningful access to education?
Our next speaker is Nicole Renault.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So February is Inclusive Education Month in Canada, and EPSB is celebrating by violating nearly 3,700 children's constitutional rights to an education, as well as their Section 15 charter rights. Section 15 states every individual is equal before the law without discrimination based on disability. Provincial ministerial orders do not supersede the charter or children's constitutional rights to an education. I cannot stress enough the damage that discriminating on the basis of disability is doing to children and their families. The damage to their human dignity, their sense of worth, the reinforced practice of exclusion again and again and again is unconscionable, not to mention the failure to accommodate. The ministerial order states where the board provides at-home learning to the student, the board shall ensure a learning plan is completed for the student that enables the student to achieve the learning outcomes in the same courses and education program that the student is enrolled in. None of that is happening right now. Here are some things that parents have shared with me. My grade 7 student has been sent home with kindergarten level worksheets that appear to be COVID leftovers. My grade 9 kid had worksheets on the first day of the strike last month and nothing since. Another parent says we were not given any extra material for at-home learning. The school has a 15-minute story time from 9 to 9:15 a.m. where they can log on and say good morning to the teacher. That is it. On top of all of this, pre-enrollment season is before us and parents are receiving more pushback than ever from schools when trying to enroll their disabled children in mainstream education. Please hear what I'm saying. EPSB school administrators across the division are violating the board's own policy that outlines that inclusive education will be the first placement choice. Edmonton Public Schools are demonstrating a pattern of exclusion that is rooted in ableism. And let me be clear, no amount of funding will fix ableism. Ableism is a mindset, just like inclusion is a mindset. And only an ableist mentality is able to so readily dismiss the rights of disabled students. Only an ableist mentality doesn't treat their education as important or fails to see this exclusion for the inhumane violation that it is. Then again, only an ableist mentality justifies using seclusion rooms against its most vulnerable students. Your perceptions shape our kids' reality. So the perception that disabled kids do not belong or that they're dangerous, the perception that their education is optional, the perception that our children are not worthy of equality shapes the reality that they are living right now. Thank you very much and happy Inclusive Education Month.
Our next speaker is Marin Edwards de la O. Your microphone is now live.
My kids are attending junior high and high school at an Edmonton Public School Board school, and I don't think it's ever an easy time of life, but I can't imagine what it would be like to have my kids barred from attending school at all. Rejections sting hard for teens, and we remember those insults our whole lives. The students barred from Edmonton Public Schools because of their immigration status will remember that stinging rejection from Canadian society their entire lives. But those very kids are giving you an education. You heard from some of them who were brave enough to speak to you last year. I'm so very proud of those teenagers who expressed such dignity in fighting for their right to access education, and you should be proud of them too. You should be proud to offer quality public education for all children, not just the children it is convenient for you to teach. This is not an issue that you can retreat into jurisdictional finger pointing on. It is clear to all people of conscience what you must do. You must offer non-status kids and all kids the education that they need and deserve. If you claim resource scarcity, you are really saying some kids are worth more than others. If you don't defend education for all, then you permit the basis of publication to be eroded. We all know that education lacks proper funding. This cannot be a reason to justify denying an education to any children who live in our city. Nor can it be a justification for failing to offer a fair settlement for EPSB support workers, including English language support workers for that matter. Non-status kids bear no blame whatsoever for the state of affairs in education funding. They just want to go to school and have the same opportunities as other kids. Allow them to do so, and in so doing, prove that public education is really worth fighting for. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Salman Kovaled. Your microphone is now live.
Hello, trustees. I am currently employed with Edmonton Public as a substitute teacher after working within the district for 5 years as a continuous contract teacher. Speaking in solidarity and support of the group Education for All, I acknowledge the importance of education as a cornerstone of individual and societal development. Access to education, especially for children, is fundamental in breaking the cycle of poverty, fostering equality, and promoting social cohesion. The right to accessing education is a fundamental human right recognized under Canadian and international law, of which Canada is signatory and has legal obligations. Education is protected for all residents in Canada under Section 7 and Section 15 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which guarantees the right to life, liberty, security of the person, and equality before and under the law. Alberta's School Act mandates access to education for all children who are residents, without specifying immigration status. Preventing undocumented children from attending school undermines the principle of equality and non-discrimination embedded in Canadian law. Canada is a signatory to several international human rights treaties that affirm the right to education, including the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that everyone has the right to education, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which emphasizes accessibility and non-discrimination, and the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which recognizes the right of every child to education, irrespective of their or their parents' legal status. I will note as well that Alberta signed onto the Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1998 under Premier Ralph Klein. This calls upon all systems to ensure our obligations to children under this international treaty. Steps that can be taken to address this issue are advocating for amendments to the Education Act of Alberta to ensure that no child is refused admission. This is something that the province of Ontario has set a precedent for. Additionally, implementing sanctuary schools or safe zones, something that several school jurisdictions across the province of British Columbia has done. Public education exists to create equal opportunities for all children regardless of their background. Many of us here have had the fortune of being born in Canada. Similarly, for these children, their fate has been shaped by forces beyond their control. While the current situation is far from ideal, it is our reality. Families arrive in Canada through various pathways, temporary visas, refugee claims, and due to a myriad reasons such as policy changes, exploitation, and personal hardships, some fall into undocumented status. This is not a failure on their part, but rather a complex interplay of systemic factors. Their parents came to Canada seeking a better opportunity for their children, and what they're experiencing is the opposite. Excluding children from education exacerbates social inequalities and tensions, undermines efforts towards building inclusive communities, and denying education harms not only the children involved, but also Canadian society. We urge the board and policymakers to reaffirm their commitment to the principles of equality and inclusion by advocating for clear legislation ensuring that no child in Alberta, regardless of their immigration status, is denied access to education. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dacian Martin Doyle. Your microphone is now live.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, my name is Martin Doyle. I have two sons in Edmonton Public School Board. The eldest is in grade 12 and he's attending school daily as usual. My youngest son has autism and he can only attend school for 2 days a week at the present minute. The first week of the strike, the education worker strike, we had 0 school days, despite you having plenty of notice to have a plan in place for disabled students. Even before the strike, many students don't get the help they need. They fall through the cracks. Many parents feel they must resort to homeschooling due to lack of supports and acceptance of neurodiverse and disabled children. This is due to chronic underfunding of education, lack of staff, and a lack of commitment on your parts to prioritize acceptance and inclusion. A place for everyone is in your vision statement, but currently EPSB is not a place for everyone, is it? As you all well know, thousands of disabled children are currently being denied the right to an education under your watch. Thousands of parents like myself have to explain to our children why they can't go to school, why they're being excluded, and console them as their neurotypical siblings head off to school. The ministerial order, which you asked for, may give you cover, but you still must know it's not right. Our children deserve to go to school. On top of the emotional toll to parents and children, often, as in my case, I can't work while my son is off school. You are literally given funding to educate him. You don't fulfill that responsibility, and the financial toll falls on us parents. For a single parent, I'm sure you can see that their ability to work is gone, and job losses and poverty are the end result for some. This is outrageous and unacceptable. You must do everything in your power to end this labor conflict immediately. If your hands are tied from those above, with the use of secret mandates, speak out or resign. Quite frankly, do your job and provide equal access to education for all. Find some courage. What you are doing to our children is unconscionable. Shame on all of you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brad Boyd. Your microphone is now live.
Hi there. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Been years since I spoke to you all. I had a nice written thing that my son, who's kept home from school today, somehow got a hold of, and I can't find it. So I'm going to wing this real Number one, what's going on right now, my son is already segregated. He's in the Edmonton Public Interactions program. He goes into a separate door. He starts school later. He's dismissed earlier. Even though he needs more, he gets less. He is home today. This is 3 days this week. He will attend school. He goes next week 2 days. So that's the flip. 3 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off. With the breaks and holidays this month, my son will not even spend 30% of the calendar in school. When he's in school, things are fine. He does well with what he's given when well supported. The supports have been stripped, of course. So he's left with his educators. They're doing the best they can with what they have. Nothing has come home for these days in between. We found stuff on our own, but the school has sent nothing home for the boy to work on or to stay in a flow, which is highly disruptive. What I've gone through today is perfectly indicative of that, especially when the poor kid can look out the window and seeing every other kid going to school. Why doesn't he get to go? He's autistic. He's not stupid. What you're doing, there's a whole bunch of these kids that are being raised that they just don't matter, or at least not to y'all, right? Okay, look in my eyes. This is a product of seclusion. That's a whole nother conversation. I will thank Sarah for touching on that. We need to stop spending money on further segregation and locking kids up when all they want is to learn. That's all they want. Just get educated. My son would like to work at a zoo. I'm sure all these kids have got something better to do than hang out with their dad, who obviously can't work because he's being part educational assistant, SLP, OT, however many hats I need to put on today. Can you please? I'm thankful for this opportunity. I think you need to continue this. We need transparent accountability. Would go a long, long way.
Our next speaker is Wanda Chell. Your microphone is now live.
I'm here today to speak in support of the Education for All campaign, calling for access to education for all children residing in Alberta, regardless of the immigration status held by their parents. I support the Education for All campaign for a number of reasons. As an educator with almost 30 years of experience in K-12, foundational, and post-secondary education, I've seen firsthand the power and possibility that comes from accessible and inclusive learning spaces. In recent years, I've taught courses in the humanities in a post-secondary institution. A few years ago, a student shared a story. I know this family who moved neighborhoods, and now their children can't attend school because of the parents' immigration status. We talked about the problem, and unsure as to the options available, I called my local school board trustee, who advised me the family should reach out to the local board members in the area, and I could be assured that they would bring up the issue. 2 years on, and children are still being denied access to primary education. Article 28 of the Convention for the Rights of the Child declares, state parties recognize the right of the child to education, and with a view to achieving this right progressively and on the basis of equal opportunity, they shall, in particular, make primary education compulsory and free to all. Let me say that again. Make primary education compulsory and free to all. Notice that there are no caveats, no unless there is a labor dispute, or not children with disabilities, or only if parents have permanent residency, or if the province decides to fund it, or this is void if the Education Act is unjust. It says compulsory and free to all. How can the people of Edmonton stand behind this article in its spirit of intent and without exception? Children are not responsible for the rules of the state or the status of their parents, but we are responsible for the education of children. I ask the members of this board to hold up Convention Article 28 of the Convention. This might be through various means, including declaring Edmonton Public School Board sites of sanctuary. In return, we will continue to fight unjust acts so that all children in Alberta will have access to free and compulsory education. Please act now. We are responsible for the education of all children. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Taylor Carson. However, they have not joined the meeting, so we'll move to the next speaker, Ashley Lumi Levesque. Your microphone is now live.
Edmonton Public School Board of Trustees, fellow speakers, and other attendees. I have been a parent of a public school student for 8 years and myself attended Edmonton Public Schools for 13 years. I have also worked with special needs students for a decade. My child and myself have both been incredibly privileged to have had most of our needs met within the timely manner in a school system, succeeding as it has been designed. Unfortunately, not every student or family experiences this success. Thousands of students are being actively denied a public education in Edmonton, which is ironic considering that as a public board, you advocate that education is important for all. The public school system states they can serve all students. They advocate for public funds and constantly and consistently push against privatization and government funding of private or independent schools. On their website, EPSB states the purpose is to reflect the Board of Trustees' mandated responsibility and expectation for providing a welcoming, inclusive, safe, and healthy learning and working environment throughout the division. Why then are students being denied an education? Does forbidding students from attending schools sound welcoming or inclusive? I propose this as a purpose instead. To reflect the Board of Trustees' goal to provide education to those who we feel are worthy and force homeschooling for those who don't fit our box. Your values are accountability, collaboration, equity, and integrity. Can you honestly look at yourselves and agree you live these values in your role? Denying students the ability to learn in a way that suits them best is not equitable. You are accountable to the public for the way you spend the dollars given to you. You have received funds to educate every single student. EPSB receives more money for students with complex needs than their neurotypical counterparts. Will families who have been forced to educate their child be provided a teacher wage? Homeschooling is an option and comes with funding for families who choose that. Will Edmonton Public be paying the 3,000 families and more who are not able to access public education by the board's choice and request the same funding? If I kept my neurotypical child home the same amount of time you forbid disabled students from attending, I would be taken to truancy court and would be in trouble. Yet other families are forced into this. This government is not funding education appropriately. I firmly believe everyone on this call, everyone on the board agrees with that statement. This is a problem and something that desperately needs to be addressed. However, a separate issue is how the public board chooses to spend the funding they receive. Instead of funding support staff, instead of ensuring students receive a quality education and classrooms that meet their needs, this board chose police officers and seclusion rooms and now a fancy new website. While in effect years ago, the SRO program cost EPSB about $1.2 million a year. By voting to re-implement this program, against your promise not to, by the way, you are saying there's nothing better to spend that money on. By voting to build more seclusion rooms, which this division openly admits are allowed to be used to restrain humans against their will, you are saying the division has so much money you can waste it on rooms you also state you may or may not decommission later. Families all over wish they had money to waste on potentially useless rooms, but they're too busy missing work and trying to pay their bills.
Our next speaker is Nicole Biner. Your microphone is now live.
Board of Trustees, thank you for giving me this brief opportunity to express my concerns. On January 12th, my son has been temporarily prohibited from attending school for the time due to the CUBE 3350 strike. Under these circumstances, I expected it would take the schools a few days to plan how to effectively assist students. I was not well informed about the inner workings of the Edmonton Public School divisions, but I assumed each school would have to address this shortage on its own and work out a contingency plan. I was shocked to learn that instead of addressing the issue, you requested the Ministerial Order 002/2025 that exempts children with special needs from in-person learning. Such a conclusion is profoundly troubling and concerning to me. It makes me wonder, didn't we just learn during the COVID-19 pandemic how devastating it is for students to miss in-person education, particularly for those with special needs? I recognize that there might be concerns regarding the health and safety of students, but this order does not justify it. CUBE 3350 does not only include educational assistance, it represents a wide range of support staff. The strike impacts the entire school community, yet this order unfairly discriminates children with disabilities and places an additional burden on us families. We are not teachers and are not equipped with the educational supplies to teach our children at home, nor are we financially prepared to miss out on work due to that. A trustee's duty is to ensure that every student has equal access to an education. At the moment, that isn't happening. I came here today to address you. Please do not hide behind ministerial orders and delegations. The government has proven that they are willing to deny children with disabilities access to education instead of funding their education properly. We depend on you to advocate for fair funding and to ensure that the money flows where it should. Every one of your employees in the school division is important. You have people who deal with high levels of management, logistics, and so on, and people who deal with the students on a daily basis. Support needs to be available in the right places for Edmonton schools to run smoothly. I urge you to come up with a fair offer for the CUBE 3350 members so that the strike can end and everyone can go back to work. Please be fair to them. The superintendent makes about $275,000 a year. The support worker makes around $30,000. It's not about greed or politics. It's about respect and fairness. The division's employees matter. Each one plays a crucial role and contributes to a quality of education for the future of Alberta. Fairness must prevail and discrimination must end. This is a complex challenge and I'm asking you to step up and handle it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andre Businese, but she's currently not available and did not join the meeting. Our next speaker is Marjorie Marshall. Your microphone is now live.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed. We lost Marjorie Marshall, so we'll just move on to the next person. Lena Youssef also did not join the meeting, so our next speaker is J. Mark Smith. Your microphone is now live. One moment. Sorry, we're going to go back to Marjorie Marshall. Marjorie, we will put your microphone on for you, so please hold. Okay, your microphone is now live. Please proceed.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this message is for the board, the trustees, the superintendent. I'm writing on behalf of my team, my EA team. I'm an EA as well. Thank you for listening to us today. I want to encourage you to truly hear what we're saying so we can finally put an end to this strike, which has been going on now for week 5. We are currently on week 5. We are exhausted, and not just because of the strike. Many of us are working 2 to 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our head, food on our table, and clothes on our backs. When we are working in the schools, we are performing the duties to 2 to 4 employees because there's not enough funding to hire the proper number of staff. This has led to massive burnout, turnover, and injuries, which then adds more to the plate of the staff who can still work. We're struggling. As I said earlier, many of us are working multiple jobs. We are told that there's not enough money to go around, yet you're able to give yourself a raise. We are told that you cannot go above the 2.75% increase, but you're somehow able to pay substitute teachers and nurses to come in and do our jobs. We are disappointed. We are constantly told that you value us and the work that we do, yet refuse to stand up for us. You refuse to confront the government about how underfunded our public schools are. You refuse to stand up to the government and protect the rights of children with disabilities. Your actions show that you can only care about yourself and not your employees or the children in your nothing more than to go back to work and to support our kids. How we are not asking, we are simply asking for a wage that would allow us the necessities of life without having to work 2 to 3 jobs. We are demanding that you put your money where your mouth is and stand up to the government. Show us you truly value us and demand the wage cap to be removed. Demand change, demand proper funding, demand the removal of the wage cap, defend your employees, and protect the most vulnerable children in your care. Thank you.
So our
Thank you very much. And before we move on to the remaining speakers, I'm just going to do a quick reminder of the process that we're following, in particular around decorum and critical statements. So please note that as the chair, I have full authority to maintain decorum and order of the meeting to ensure a welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe environment, which includes interrupting any speaker who makes critical statements about particular individuals or groups of people, whether named or identifiable by the context, ruling the speaker out of order, and terminating the speaker's privilege to address the Board of Trustees. Further, the Education Act provides that no person shall disturb or interrupt the proceedings of a board meeting. So with that, let's proceed with the remaining speakers. Thank you, everyone.
Our next speaker is Lena Youssef. Your microphone is now live. Please proceed.
Hello, Board of Trustees. I want to share my personal experience with education in Lebanon and Colombia. Despite Lebanon not being a developed country, it has a strong focus on inclusive education. I faced challenges in my learning journey, but received the right support without punitive consequences. In contrast, Canada, a developed country, has punitive measures for children with disabilities, which is unacceptable. Families recognize the vital role of teachers and schools and the impact on those students. Imagine those dreams that students being taken away. We know they can offer in their future amazing things. Please, we ask to not stop them. In fact, many scientists and doctors known today were diagnosed with autism. Families are concerned about the safe and well-being of their children. It's approximately 99% of those disabled students where we looked closely at their policies and standard seclusion rooms, timeouts, and physical restraints that is not being monitored closely. Right practices are behavior plan, behavior intervention that has been experienced and had positive outcome. Sensory rooms and offices should be positive and therapeutic environment, not utilized as a punitive consequences. Another parent mentioned to me, I was traumatized when I witnessed the use of sensory room used in an unsafe way with students with disabilities, like kicking, punching to get out of the room. This approaches to those students will be requiring a significant and excessive funding down the road to correct some of the issues that this situation is causing. Affordable solutions to reduce behaviors that students is involving students in leadership, respecting their choices, positive peer role model, learning from social interactions, and experiencing the same. Practice to set a successful setting to those students. This only could happen with the right experiences and the right tools. Thank you.
Our next speaker is J. Mark Smith. Your microphone is now live. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My daughter, who is 12, is at a junior high in North Edmonton in a connections classroom, what formerly was called a behavioral learning assistance class. She has a diagnosis of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, as well as autism spectrum and Tourette's. She's in a class of 6 students with a teacher and 2 educational assistants. Since the CUPE 3550 strike began, she has been allowed to come to school only on alternating days. She no longer sees her classmates most days. Stuck at home, she is bored and misses this crucial social connection. She is, I would say, regressing. I'd like to remind the board of the existence of all the children in connections and community learning skills classrooms across this school division, 854 of them in 2023-24. This is a near invisible group of students. They are disproportionately Indigenous. A significant number of them are in foster care, which means that privacy laws protect their identities, but also shield Edmonton Public Schools from giving a public account of their numbers and of what their educational outcomes are looking like. Every one of these children has a right, an inalienable right, to an education. But let me tell you what I've seen the last 3 years as a parent. A deliberate policy of underfunding supports in these classrooms, of inadequately training teachers and educational assistants, and of not paying EAs a living wage. The Connections classrooms are little better than holding tanks for so-called difficult children, complete with frequently used seclusion rooms. EPSB takes no responsibility for these students' futures. It adopts stalling tactics, it runs out the clock, provides them with no real education, and waits for them to drop out, which they do en masse when they get to junior high and high school age. These are among the most vulnerable children in our schools. They are the ones who end up on the street, dead of overdoses, entangled in the justice system. EPSB's approach to them amounts to what the scholar Ruth Gilmore Wilson calls institutional abandonment. That is, it sends them into the waiting arms of law enforcement and the prison system, and worse. From the perspective of kids in Connections classrooms, this board's determination to put police officers in our high schools is so disconnected from the underlying realities, it would be funny if it were not so desperately sad. EPSB's problems start at the top. Its head administrator, not just in the last month, but the last several years, has made his priorities clear. But we see through him and through this board.
Excuse me,
frankly.
you've identified a particular individual. Let's keep in mind the decorum of the meeting. Thank you.
May I continue? We've had enough. The parents and guardians of children in Connections classrooms are fed up. I'm grateful to the parents of children in Interactions classrooms and to the parents of other children with complex needs for being allies. Few of us are politically minded people.
Our next speaker is Athena Gordon. Your microphone is now live. Please proceed. Hello, Athena. We'll restart your timer. One moment.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank you for providing me time to address you today. I am an administrative assistant with Edmonton Public Schools and a member of CUPE 3550, and I wanted to speak to you today about the ongoing strike. First, we're back at the table today, which is great. And like my brothers and sisters out on the line, I hope we're able to get a fair deal so that we can go back to work. Second, I wanted to express how disappointed I am in how long this strike has continued for. We all know that the wage cap imposed by the government is an issue. During his talk earlier, Superintendent Robertson said that we support staff are valued. After our initial strike vote, he sent a letter to staff and families where he said, quote, "We value the incredible work that support staff do in schools and central departments to support student successes each and every day, and we remain committed to reach an agreement." The problem is they're empty words. He says these things and then refuses to fight on our behalf. The bargaining committee.
I'm going to have to ask you to speak about things in more general terms and not be specific about an individual. You may proceed.
Sure. The offer that has come repeatedly to our union is essentially the same monetary offer that was rejected. It's not being improved upon. I hope today is a different story. But when I look at those offers, we can come back a week early for professional learning. I'm an administrative assistant. I'm back 2 weeks early anyways. There's no professional learning offered for me except for 1 day. So that kind of deal isn't going to make a difference for me. An extra 15 minutes a day, sure. But if that is not for everyone, if it's at the discretion of a principal or administrator, it doesn't apply to everyone. It's not a fair deal. I'd like to know how these offers align.
Athena, your video has cut out. We can't hear or see you.
Hi there. Mine has also gone out, so I want to say if Athena is able to rejoin and we can get her going again, let's back it up to wherever it was that was cut off. I'm thinking it was about at the 30 seconds mark. Can we proceed to the next speaker?
There are no other registered speakers online.
Okay, so that includes the previous two that were skipped over as well, correct? They have not yet joined the meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's just give it, we'll stand at ease for, let's say, a minute or two and see if we can get Athena back on to finish her speaking notes. And then we will conclude after that. Okay, I saw her screen pop up blank a couple of times. Let's give it one more go and see if we can make it work.
Hi, Julie. It looks like Athena is actually currently offline. She's no longer joined the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. So that concludes remarks from the speakers. So I just would really like to say on behalf of the board that we appreciate the time and effort that you've made in preparing and providing your comments today. And we do welcome you to submit your comments in writing to the recording secretary, and those will be received by the entire board. Thank you very much. We'll now move to item L on our agenda, meeting dates. I'd like to call on the superintendent to provide our next board meeting date.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next public board meeting will be on Tuesday, March 4th at 2 p.m.
Thank you for that. And we will now move to the last item on our agenda, item M, and I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.